Well, it must be Halloween because we're being invaded by black cats. Let me check my mic. Yes, it's there. We're in and with the official mic setting. It is Halloween, and we are being invaded by black cats. So there's this cat that's been coming around for a while. Big, thick, furry coat, right? Big, thick, furry coat. And I've been feeding this cat for maybe about a year and a half, something like that. And and then all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but I started feeding what I thought was the same black cat, but it's not. It's like we were looking at. Oh, look how much fur. We call this my cat Sambi. It's kind of the Y version for Samba. Uh, oh, look how much fur Samba's lost. And it's like, no, that's not Samba. Oh, look, he has a white spot on his chest. So now we have two black cats that have shown up. So Halloween season is officially here. Does the white spot qualify him as a black cat? I'm just it's kind of like the 1% rule in reverse for cats. Just saying. Always feed stray cats. Well, we fed Peachy, and she's no longer a stray cat. At least most of the time. Oh, speaking of cats, look at that, right on time. J-Man's here, the astrological cat, back for another Sunday Night Astro Live appearance. You ready, Jasper? How was the eclipse for you? Did you have a good eclipse? Huh? We think Jasper's a Taurus, so this eclipse might have really affected him. I'll let you know over the next couple of days. Right? Yeah. So we had some earthquakes. I don't know if you guys have noticed some of the seismic action happening right around. I think there was an earthquake in California. Maybe we just take a quick peek at the USGS website and track some of that because it felt like a lot of the. Yes, I know you've been in some earthquakes in California. I know you have. I know you've been in earthquakes. Maybe we can track some of that because I was talking about seismic energy on Friday. We were just coming out of the Lewiston shooting. So the weird thing about the Lewiston shooting, of course, is the guy pulling the trigger theoretically was an Aries, right? Born on 4/4. Some very unusual versions, photographic versions of the individual, and his name. What was his name in Gematria? Was the same numerical value as Neuralink, which I thought was quite interesting. Neuralink, particularly for somebody who was hearing voices. Now they said they put earphones or ear listening buds, right? Listening hearing aids in his ear because he was having hearing issues. I guess he was a vet, and when you are around a lot of heavy gunfire, there's probably a pretty good chance you're going to lose a portion of your hearing ability. And again, that's a very Aries thing, right? Auditory system, the ears. So he was hearing voices. He checked into one of their vet rehab centers or something like that. The next thing you know, they're plugging him, they're wiring him with sound, and then he's hearing voices. That's just got to be weird, right? Like, has anybody actually heard voices inside your head that you knew were not your own? And then it's like, well, what do you do with that? Because if you're aware that they have like voice to skull and shit like that, you'd be like, okay, these are not my own. These are not my own words. These aren't voices of higher inspiration. I guess it all depends on what it's telling you to do. Now, if I was going to get into somebody's head and I was going to be the voice in their head and I wanted them to do something that was against their nature and their character, the first thing I would do is I would build them up, right? I would build them up and I would give them good thoughts. That's the narcissist program, but I'd love bomb the person. And then I might even work something out where, if they were doing that, that they could actually give them some, like, stage something so that they believe the voice, right? Stage some kind of event like, okay, you don't here, you don't want to go down this street, but you want to go down this street. And as the guy drives past that street, all of a sudden, as he comes up to it, there's they created some kind of barricade or something, and there's like hazmat trucks. And it's like, oh shit. Okay, well, thanks, I guess. Right? Like that's how you would do it. You would build trust and confidence in the person. I don't know if you would just start, randomly broadcasting crazy fucking sociopathic thoughts. That would not be my program. But then again, I'm not an evil bastard that works for DARPA. But that's what happened, right? He heard these voices. And again, we're Chiron and Aries, 19 degrees. We're going to have people like him, Robert Card, the wounded vet. So he was a wounded vet, Aries, right? Auditory. See how this works? He was born on 4/4. Interesting. Of course, there's a gun crime committed. The weird thing is the just-in-time recreation bowling center that this whole thing happened at. And I know somebody who lived, I say lived now, past tense, 5 doors down from Robert Card. And kind of walked past this place all the time. Might have seen him a few times, never had words with the guy. Weird world, right? Anyway, just in time, which is where it's a strange place, right? This whole notion of just in time. When we think of just in time, at least for what I do, I think of just in time, which is the software program that Ross Perot developed for the Waltons, so they could turn their stores into warehouses and get rid of the warehouse space by barcoding everything. And then once a product went below a certain number, let's say you had 12 of the product on the shelf, by the time you got to product number 7, within a reasonable time, they were already ordering the next shipment, right? And would just show up. Everything was just computer generated. That's just in time. It changed everything. It changed how we deal with retail and deal with business. Remember the old, hey, could you check if you see one, if you have another one in the back? Could you just check to see if you have another one in the back? Well, there's no in the back anymore. It's just forward of the floor, all on the floor, right? So that's just in time. But it also, to me, is like very reminiscent of Capricorn, how Capricorn rules time. And when we look at events that occur in the public space, in many instances, we question those events. And even if you had a rather cynical outlook and point of view, where if you understood astrology and you understood that the United States is about to go through its Chiron return, which it did 50 years ago, right? It's got Chiron at 20 Aries. You would look at that event and you would say to yourself, wow, it's just in time. Because they had the press release for the removal of assault weapons ready to go just 2 days before the event happened. Of course, signed by Kamala Harris, not Joseph Biden, but Kamala Harris. And if you were looking at the sequence of events, well, that press release was just in time. It was just in time for this event to happen. Just in time in Gematria has the same numerical value as Pizzagate, which I thought was rather interesting. Now, I'm not making an allusion to the fact that they were serving, pizza and hot dogs at that place. I'm not going to go there. I'll tell you something though, and I'm sure the owners of the place are fine, local, upstanding people. But when I looked at who owned the place, I could not find anything. I mean, I knew their names, right? Because their names are attached to the business license. But I went on, the only thing I could find was a Facebook page for the cafe bowling alley. It's kind of a recreation place. It was weird. It's like, well, okay, normally people have businesses. They're normally on LinkedIn. It's almost a fait accompli that they're on LinkedIn. There was no LinkedIn there. It was weird, very weird. So that happened on Friday. Oh, was it Thursday? It was Wednesday night going into Thursday. It was Seismic. But this weekend, let's look at the USGS just in case. What's going on with my Niners? They're fucking sucking the tailpipe. Oh, they're getting blown out now by Cincinnati. This is not good. Somebody's going to lose their job. Okay, let's look at USGS. And I'm going to get into chat, see who's here. Okay. USGS, latest earthquakes. So we're looking at here. Let me throw this up here so you guys, so we can explore this together. I used to spend a lot of time on the USGS map. I'm no Dutch sense, but I spent a lot of time looking at this stuff for a while. Okay, so this is the quake activity. Let's go back here. Hold on. Let me go back. Let me refresh this. Okay. So the black quakes are the ones that have the most magnitude, right? They're the ones that, and then you can also look at how shallow or deep they are. And usually when you pay attention to them, you can see the ring of fire in action. Oh, come on. It's not there. Well, where'd you go? Where'd you go? Where's this one in California that happened? We had, this is New Mexico, 50 kilometers in New Mexico, earthquake in Puerto Rico. Man, some big shit happened in Acapulco, right? Which a lot of people are not talking about. But we're trying to keep this in the astrological realm. We're looking at this through the eclipse cycle. Scorpio, Taurus, Philippines, Japan had an earthquake. 1028. So that was yesterday. So we're into yesterday. And you can see usually when the ring of fire heats up that that it almost goes off like a bit of a symphony. It just rotates around the ring. It happens pretty quickly. Had a big quake in Zambia. That's interesting. Southeastern Alaska, 1.8 kilometers. That's pretty shallow. The shallow quakes, of course, do the most damage. What about this one? Let's look at this one in Japan. That was as of yesterday. And man, this site used to be more responsive. Let's see, anything else here? Nicaragua, newest first. Magnitude, let's see what we got here. So 155 kilometers. That's pretty deep, right? That's pretty deep. But we got a 4.6 in Nicaragua. We got a 4.5 in Argentina. That's still pretty deep. And Japan 4.6. The northern mid-Atlantic ridge. That's interesting. That's a 5.1, and that's 10.0 kilometers. That's outside the Ring of Fire. New Zealand had a pretty good one, just off the coast of New Zealand, Kermadec Islands, 35 kilometers, but a 5.0. Any others? 4.8. This is a big one right here. Vanuatu 6.0, 79 kilometers, kind of middle depth. The Japanese. Okay, so we had a little bit of a swarm of quakes here in Japan. Looks like there were two. They happened fairly simultaneously, but at different depths. One at 35.8 and one at 40.9. That's interesting. The one in Zambia. So the Ring of Fire is kind of heating up a little bit. We always get a little nervous when we see quakes in Puerto Rico. But anyway, this is a really good site, and these are 2.5 plus magnitude in the last day. So can we get any on the map? I guess not. Okay. All right. Just a bit of a bird's eye view there. All right. Let's see who we have tonight. A man, DJ MC, Michael, Sister Nito in the house. Lucky 7, I'm a baby boomer, cusp with Gen X, rising. All right. Baby boomer cusp. There's my man, Thomas Jordan. What's going on, Tom? Good to see you. Meow, meow, kitty, poop, poop, poop. What's going on? Hanging Laundry's here, guy, a travelogue. Kelly and kids. Scuba Kel, I'm going to send you your file tonight after the show. I have not forgotten you, Scuba Kel. Scuba Kel is a Leo, and if you saw her hair, you would believe in astrology. Let me tell you. MB is here. There's Margin in charge. Third eye activated. What's going on? Jan Shavino, also in the house. My man Ryan, the president, worldwide president of the International Woodworkers Union, Introspective Woodworkers Union. You got to be introspective. There is Catherine Rosen. What's happening, CR? Always good to have you here. Pisces in the house. Diane Evans. What's going on, Diane? U.S. government bans the export of guns and ammo. Here we go, Ryan. South Node in Aries. It's lining up. There she is, the lovely and talented one, Dr. Joan S. Remember, if you need your mercury amalgams extracted, go see Dr. Joan S. She'll take your fillings out with style. CC Jones is here. What's going on, Fran? Fantastic. Good to see you. Dave Sullivan's here. Good evening, Dave. Always a pleasure. Christine Mose. Christine is on fire, man. Christine, ever since she got back from the event, she's just on fire. Always good to have you, Christine. Glemma Spank. Hello, Glemma. Mary Lee's here. Hey, Mary Lee. Checking in from good old jolly old England. Claire. Hi, Claire. Gen X. We'll make a fascinating discussion. Yes, I think so. Gen X is about to move into center square. Gen X will occupy the Paul Lynde Square in Hollywood Squares. Speaking of Gen X, there she is, Jake. Gucci to go. It's what's going on, Jake. Good to see you. Rainbows and butterflies there. Liddy Lou. Yes, temperatures dropped here, my fellow Texan. We're going to be down in the 40s tonight. No one you know. Good evening back to you, no one. Noyk. Noik. Brandy Herrera's here. Hi, Brandy. Let's see what else we have. The BB blog. How about that? I've been seeing you, BB. I've been seeing you on Twitter. Nice to have you here. Very talented person, that BB. Check out the BB blog. She's good at what she does. Whatever it is. She's artistic. Kelly S., what's happening? Kataria's right. Road Trip 1981. Good evening. Amy Gill is here. Hi, Amy. LaDonna Bella Villalobos. I love that. What a name. First time being showed up in my YouTube feed. I've actually been learning astrology and the Christian biblical connection is fascinating. A lot of Christians don't believe in that. No, they don't. Well, welcome, LaDonna Bello Villalobos. Awesome. All right, who else do we have? Red Pill 87 GF. What's happening? Oh, right after her. Man, we got a strong run here. Pedrita Pebbles checking in. Lisa Ann White is here. YouTube has updated integrated AI chatbots. Oh, interesting. That makes sense, unfortunately. Or when you move, you take them with you. I'm trying. I'm trying to round up these. Now I got two. Like, where the fuck did this other guy come from? You know, it was sort of like body double or something. I think they've been kind of playing me. That's what I think. Moira in NYC, what's going on? You all astrologers and tarot readers have cats. Just wondering, I'm kind of new to astrology. I'm trying to learn it myself. When I found out it was difficult, how Christians think. Yeah, I live in Texas, and I'm sure some of them would like to spit roast me, but they're still nice people. They're still nice people. Yes, if you want to be an astrologer or tarot reader, you must have a cat. You have to have a cat, but the cat will find you. I'm deathly allergic to cats, and I love them. You can experience mine through the screen. No problem there. Magical Caticorn also checking in up there around Dallas area. Better stay warm. Dusty Blue. Hey, Dusty Blue. You're welcome, LaDonna. I had a black cat once and named him Swan. I like that. Black cats are cool. I had a really cool black cat. My Jasper cat is a Cancer kitty. Road Trip 1901 says, I have two black cats, Noche and Sammy. I love that. Plus, stray black cat I feed with no name. I got to come up with a name for the guy. I don't want to call him Spot. That's just too obvious. Am I right? It's too obvious. I don't know what I'll call him. I got to come up with something. Maybe I'll take some requests here from chat. Ojos Azules. This eclipse is on my Uranus in midheaven. Crickets. Sometimes it lasts. It takes a while. Sometimes nothing fucking happens at all, which is probably not a bad thing. Jasper and Robert look like father and son. He's better looking than I am. I gotta say, if he's my son, he's got the better genes. Let's see. Oh, look at that. So Kelly and kids, we had one yesterday nearby the Tennessee, North Carolina line. Oh, so they're speaking of cats. There's Pippin. You know what I need? I need like a fucking cat cam on the outside. So every now and then I can just cut to the cat action that's happening out there. That's New Madrid territory, Kelly. Let's see. Feels really good to be accepted. All my Christian friends are against me, but they're the ones that are crazy. I learned Hebrew and Greek because I want to know the truth. LaDonna, we got to put your comment up there. That is a great comment. We got a truth seeker here. We have one who can see. Peter Bayonne, he's back with us. He survived another week. Welcome, Peter. Congratulations. User 13 is here. Robert Anderson. Mr. Anderson. Checking in from Idaho. Tondor. Mike. Hi, guys. Hand pink waving. All right. Oh, it's Miko. Hi, Miko. Let's see. Matt Card. Robert Card. Robert Card was his name. He was born on 4/4. 44. 44 Magnum. This is in Lewiston, Maine. Oh, they did have a shooting in Tampa, didn't they? Didn't get as much press. I wonder why. Usually that's determined by the, we call it the criminological grayscale. Keeps buffering. Let's see. Uh-oh, here we go. Lewis Walden breaking. Big news. Hello, all. Just received a job offer from the largest new construction builder in the U.S. Fantastic opportunity. The Taurus Eclipse was life-changing. It doesn't always have to be bad. It does not always have to be bad. Congratulations, Lewis. That's awesome. Good job. Kelly S. is here. Let's see. Without Dutch Sense, not very informed. Dutch Sense was this guy. What's up? Dutch Sense was this guy. Came around in the 2000s, I think. 2010s. And he became this kind of earthquake wizard and was always predicting quakes. And he had all these, crazy models and stuff. And he got very esoteric. And at times, I think there were people that died around him. And I think about 3 or 4 times he promised never. He told people he would never do the quake analysis stuff again because he was being threatened by the authorities and people were dying around. But he would always come back. He had a huge following for all. I think he's probably still does. Voice to Skull. He got gear rung AIDS, then started hearing voices. Yes, he did. Thought it was good to have an inner dialogue. It's good to have an inner dialogue if you're having an inner dialogue with yourself. I think if you're having an inner dialogue with something that feels like it's outside of yourself. I mean, look, if you want to go straight, Zen and everything is mind, or Buddhism, everything is mind, right? There is no separation between anything. Then maybe the voices in his head are his own voices. That's a scary thought. That is a scary thought. Let's see. My own voice talks to moi. Strange ones get kicked out. Well, you got to know the difference. I think that's imperative. You got to know the difference. If you know the difference, you can kick the strange ones to the curb. Wasn't in my head though. It was demonic. If I answer this question, will my health insurance go up? Hey Vince, how's it going? Will it go up? No. You're safe here. Let's see. Who else do we have? I always get songs stuck in my head. Stinking Harry the Bunny running through my mind. It's a good thing I don't know that song. Thanks. I heard my son's voice and I was a mile away. He was having a traumatic moment. He called for. Now that is a real, that's a real, here, let me put this up here. That is a real experience. That's a real experience. I heard my son's voice and I was a mile away. He was having a traumatic moment and calling for me. There you go. I hope it worked out okay. Let's see. My uncle was having profound hearing loss when he got his implants. It was very disorienting to him, and he kept thinking people were talking to him because he didn't know how to filter the background. I was like, "Ooh, that's interesting." Mine was more like radio chatter and sometimes specific. I always knew that it was not my inner dialogue voice. Important to know. I think that's where the schizophrenia comes in, right? People are unable to discern whose voice is whose. Fred Bell, RIP, was discussing neurophone voice to skull technology back in 2009. It has been around for a while. Yep. Trisha Moto. Hi, Trish. Good to see you. Let's see. Yeah, you got to watch out. You got to watch out with loud music. It's not always good for your ears. Astro Emotion is here. I thought everybody heard voices inside your head, don't they? Depends, right? Depends. Like there is voices like you're, listening to somebody on the radio voice, right? And then there's sort of your inner voice, your inner dialogue, and your conscience. I think it's different. I think these people are actually hearing fucking voices inside their head, which is very disorienting. The voice in my head never shuts up. I can relate to that. I can relate to that. The Daily Mail published he was found with 2 bullet wounds in the head and then wiped it. So I'll give you a little inside baseball on this thing. Now, I can't honestly say that this is exactly what happened, but my client / friend from Twitter who lived 5 doors down from the guy, they all heard it like on the scanner. It was, they got the emergency thing on their phones, right? And they found out who the dude was. And just I don't know where the sequence of events was. But they heard a loud bang come from behind his trailer. Because I think the guy lived in a trailer. And they were all fucking freaked out. Him and his friends were all freaked out. Right? Because number one, you hear the story of this guy and he got away. Right? But then knowing that he lived 5 doors down, and then you hear this bang, right? It's like, it's not the kind of cortisol rush you people want. So can we infer that something happened, perhaps? Now, there were 2 shots, 2 bullets. Well, you only need 1. That's weird, though, right? Like, if you're going to kill yourself, why do 2 bullets? Usually people, when they kill themselves, after the first one goes, they're not pulling the second one. That's just weird. Usually 1 bullet will do the job. You try to pull that second bullet. So that's why they pulled it, didn't they? Because it was 2 bullets. All right. Unfortunately, we're probably going to have to sort through the detritus of more stories like that. Okay. Why don't we officially start the show, since we've been meeting and greeting for about a half an hour here. Before I do, I would love for you to hit the like button. We got 300 people here. If you're listening, if you're capable, able, please hit the like button, because it helps with the algorithm. And I think that's probably how our new friend LaDonna Bella Villalobos has found us, because I came up in the feed, right? This is how the show gets moved up into the hierarchy of the algorithms. So please hit like. Also, if you subscribe, there's a good chance you've been unsubscribed. It doesn't hurt to subscribe and hit the bell so you get notifications. And I really appreciate that. I'm never very good at it. And I always admire people who can just, they're just so easy with it, right? They're so easy with it. There's like, smash that like button. Oh yeah. It's like, they're so, like integrated with promoting their material. And I've always had a bit of an issue promoting my material. I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it's the latent Virgo in me. The other thing is that we have a sponsor for the show. And let me bring my sponsor up here, our sponsor. The sponsor of the show is True Hemp Science. And if you are looking for some of the best CBD products that you can buy, look no further. It's right here, True Hemp Science, where Mother Earth is our CEO. That's right. She is the CEO. And you can get all kinds of great hemp products here, edibles, the oils, water soluble if you don't want to have any alcohol, spagyrics. They've got Pet Sounds, which is really good for pets. Look at all these great products, right? And my buddy Chris, who runs True Hemp Science, he is an elixir wizard. He's a mad scientist with this stuff, but he's really good. So if you want to learn more about it and you say, well, what CBD is going to work for me, you can just go right here, speak to a CBD expert. That expert will be Chris. You just make an appointment. You go to his email and you guys can talk and he'll answer any questions. If you feel inspired and you just want to jump in and start buying some CBD, all you got to do is spend $100 and type in 15MINS, 15MINS, and you will get a goodie bag with all kinds of things in there, eyedroppers, gummies, you name it, mini eyedropper. You get some good stuff. Chris will hook you up. You only get it if you type in 15MINS. And if you spend $150 or more, you get free shipping. And there's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. So there you go, True Hemp Science. All right. Well, where do we start? Where should we start tonight? Why don't we start with this lunar eclipse? Here, let's do this. Let's do the chart of the chart of the moment, because I got a bunch of stuff all scoped out. Why don't we just get into where we are? I'm just gonna, let's see what do we got here. Yeah, we can use Dallas. It's in the same rough area. Okay. Let me go back here. Okay, so this is a nice, clean, basic, fundamental chart. You can find the chart of the moment over on astro.com without a lot of the bells and whistles. But you can see where the moon has moved out of, because we have the south node at 24 Libra, which is going to be right there, right? And it was a weird eclipse because it was not. It was an annular eclipse. It was partial. It was a partial eclipse because it was out of sign, and it was weird because when I had the eclipse lined up, I think it was 1831 universal time, right? So that was the time, 1831 universal time, and the moon was just slightly behind the sun. But if you were to go, well, I guess it'd be okay because the time would have been a bit different. I did it over Tel Aviv because I wanted to have this eclipse in that area. What did it look like, right? Because the last eclipse, even though it happened here, you know what's really interesting? The eclipse path of this last eclipse in October, and I know some of you know this, that the uncanny piece around it was that there were towns named Salem all along the eclipse path, starting with Salem, Oregon. And it was just like nutty, right? And normally we think of Salem and the Salem witch trials. But Salem is also part of the word Jerusalem or Salam, right? Which is, Salem, Salam, Salam. It's the same thing, right? I thought to myself, wow, isn't that interesting? We're, during this eclipse, and everything is starting to kind of unfold around this eclipse, this last eclipse, the Libra eclipse on October 14th. But this eclipse is different, and it's part of an older cycle of eclipses. So we're finishing up Scorpio Taurus. And the next eclipse, of course, the big one will be April 8th here again, once again in Texas, coming up from Sinaloa, Mexico. And then the center or the crossing point of the eclipse from 2017 and April is right around St. Louis, Missouri, where they have the Gateway Arch, which is fascinating. And last week, I did the presentation that I did during the event, and there's this crack that kind of runs. It's like a 1,500-mile crack that kind of dovetails, sort of starts in this cascading subduction zone, and it comes down, and it meets up actually with the New Madrid fault line, and it's not far away from the meeting point of the two eclipses. We looked at this last week. I'll bring it up again as a visual. But that's this eclipse cycle, right? Well, not really. The 2017 was part of a different cycle, which was the Leo cycle, Leo Aquarius. So this goes back to the eclipses we were having before the eclipse that we had in October. So the Taurus. So we're finishing up here. But what's interesting is that it's almost like a sandwich. So we have Libra Aries on the 14th, and then Aries Libra on the 8th of April. And then in between, but very close, we have this eclipse. So we have air, fire, and then water, earth, and then fire, air, fire, water, earth, and then fire, air. Right. So it does encompass this cycle, like it does encompass more elements than just the nodes normally would address and would express, right? So it's a bit odd, but it gets into all four of the elements: earth, air, fire, water, right? The ones that we work with and here on a daily basis. I know some of you probably work with ether on a daily basis, but the four fundamental ones. So I'm going to get to the eclipse in a second. I've got a little presentation that I put together. So we'll get into that. But this is where we are astrologically. And we're coming up here with Sun Mars conjunction in Scorpio. And we're still in a bit of a square with the Sun and Pluto. By the time the Sun catches up with Mars, it will not be in square with Pluto. So let me just bring that up. That the day for that is going to be Mars and the Sun towards the end of the month. All right, what do we got here? So there's Mars. Oh, no, actually closer. We're talking right in the middle. 24. Friday the 17th of November. Sun, Mars conjunction. And we talked about that. It's at 18, was it 24 degrees? So it puts it in the Cancerian decan. Usually, Sun Mars conjunctions in Scorpio are very rare. I don't know the exact year and day the last time we had one, but they're very rare. So their influence can be quite profound. And when both are in the Cancerian decan, it gets people to get in touch with security real fast, because that's what Cancer represents: is security, comfort, nurturing, the feminine, the moon, the mother. You know all the keywords, right? Cancer's home. And when Scorpio is in the Cancerian decan, it can get very intense. Very, very intense. Like, at what point will people fight for their homes? And I'm not even talking about brandishing a self-defense item of self-defense. What about foreclosures? Right? What about banks beginning to tumble? Right? Like, at what point will people have to fight literally for the place that they're living in? And not just that, we've got between 300 to 500,000, and that's probably even a low figure, of people who are new to our country, right? And they all need places to live. Where do you think they're going to live? Do you think they're just going to start building these places overnight? Hey, come on in. We'll get you some English tutors and we'll get you all brushed up on the founding fathers. Constitution, Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation, and boy, you'll be right as rain before you know it. No. I personally, I think that there's going to be a massive issue with housing and mortgages. And you get some of these people on their arms. When I say arms, adjustable rate mortgages, and they're going up. We're the experts. You could probably query Lewis in there, who's in chat. The experts are basically saying, "Hey, look, we're rapidly approaching the 2009 scenario, but this would be even worse. It would be like there are people who, if you were able to hold on to your property in 2009 and you lived in a place like Berkeley during the housing crisis, there's a good chance you could have got through it. And the next thing you know, you're kind of on top. It was just those people that were holding on to the arms, and they just went through the roof, and they couldn't afford their mortgages anymore. And so the banks basically took possession of them. So when we get into that Cancerian decan, that's what we're looking at. We got Mercury, Mars together. So I want to talk about, some people call it Casmi, some people call it Kazemi. And the whole idea is when two planets are on top of each other like that because they're so close, that they nullify each other. And people have asked me about that. And I guess you could get granular and say, well, yeah, because Mars will overcome the ability to think and be objective, but Mercury can overthink and stop the natural tendencies of Mars to respond to situations, right? I mean, there could be some of that. However, I do think that when they're that close, they just potentiate each other, right? So if you have the right path or the right course or the right instinct with Mercury Mars conjunct, there's no downtime. It's on demand, right? And what is on demand? Your ability to think about something and then act and make it happen. That's how I see this conjunction, right? Tonight, the moon theoretically would be conjunct Uranus, thus also Casmi or Kazemi. And, so would Uranus be too radical, too impetuous, and would it override the sort of the natural tendencies of the Taurus moon to seek comfort? Or would the Taurus moon hold back Uranus's ability to initiate and instigate radical change, changing the game up emotionally? Or can they work together in such a way that you can look at what else is going on around them? For instance, the trine to Pluto or the trine to Venus, and then look at that conjunction or Casmi differently. With the right relationship, right? You probably pull out the best of the Uranus moon conjunction, and you can be adaptable. Even in a fixed sign, you can be adaptable because Venus is in a mutable sign in Virgo, and Pluto up there in Capricorn, which now looks like it's gone direct, brings another layer to the whole mix, which is deep, profound, intense, transformational insight in terms of relating with other people. It's kind of turning things inside out, looking at your connections and your relationships in a very different kind of way. Now, you go over to the other side, and then there's Mars Mercury over there. This is part of the eclipse energy. Like if you if you had that kind of X-ray vision and you were able to kind of size up the dynamics of what's going on in your interpersonal life, and you wanted to make a change, there's no time like the present. And this is one of those don't look back changes. When it happens in fixed signs, there's no going back. Right? There is no going back. And for somebody who's going to work tomorrow on a Monday, right? And I don't know where you are with it. Are you dreading it? Are you looking forward to it? Because tomorrow the moon will be past Uranus, but it'll still be in probably a wide trine with Pluto, right? And I feel like you could still, if this has something to do with your work environment and you want to make a change, you can still pull it off. But by the end of the day tomorrow, we probably are either headed to a void of course, which I'd have to check, or we're going into Moon in Gemini. And the challenge here, right? The challenge here is if you want to make a change in a particular area of your life where you've had some insight, and especially over the last 24 hours, and you don't make the change, not to put any pressure on you, the moon in Gemini can kind of mess with things, right? And all of a sudden you're dealing with like a hall of mirrors and reflection because this is all stable and yet it's not, right? A lot of I've heard a lot of astrologers basically saying, okay, this is a time where you just have to let go. You're going to rise from the ashes. All those keywords that are associated with Scorpio and Taurus. And there's some truth to that because they wouldn't all be saying it if there wasn't any truth to it. But there are other things going on here that's not just what's happening with these eclipsed energies. The sun is still in a wide trine with Saturn. And that's a building aspect, like looking ahead and trying to see, okay, well, where am I going? What's the sort of the next rung on the ladder, or where's the next place I'm going to put my hand on the side of the cliff so I can pull myself up, right? That's what the sun is doing here and will continue to do for the next 2 days. So it's not just the eclipse energy. There's also other things going on. It's an interesting chart. It's a very interesting chart. But I feel like the biggest area right now is going to be interpersonal because of Venus and Virgo and looking at the health of your relationships. And the challenge here, again, if we're throwing this into the blender with Neptune on the other side of Venus, which we've talked about. We talked about it last week on Friday, that as Venus progresses and gets closer to that opposition with Neptune, it also gets, I think, more difficult to make changes. Now you'll still have that trine with Pluto, and you'll still have that trine with Uranus. The moon will be out of the orb, but it'll be an interesting time. So what are we talking about? Like Saturday of next week. Saturday of next week. It's when you get into a Neptune Venus opposition, it's like you can't always see at times through the, like you have rose colored glasses with your relationship, right? You have rose colored glasses, but sometimes those rose colored glasses can blind you to really what you're seeing, right? I mean, this is the nature of the opposition. And the downside here is somebody just absolutely utterly flattening you. You just don't see it coming, right? It's almost like the Trojan horse. Oh, here's a gift. Here's a wonderful gift. Oh, what a lovely horse. Come on, boys. Let's bring it in. Let's bring it in. Boy, the king is really going to fucking love this. We're all going to get promotions for this. Like that's the Neptune Venus opposition. It's very, very Trojan horsey in a lot of ways because you're not really seeing the totality of the situation. You're seeing what you want to see. Nobody thought to ask, hey, look, oh wow, you mind if we poke around here in this horse, right? Or hey, why don't you keep it outside for a while? Why don't you keep it outside for a while and we'll go talk to the king. and then we'll make sure we'll go through the horse out here. I guess they didn't have TSA back then, but that's what I'm talking about. It's like slipping through enemy lines, right? That's Neptune Venus opposition. The other thing with Neptune Venus opposition, this is a tough one. This is really a tough one because with Venus and Virgo, it's very hard for other people to live up to expectations, right? In some ways, it's always like falling short, especially when you get into the Pisces Virgo axis, always falling short for some reason. That's a tough one, right? Now, here's what I will say about it, because Venus is going to be in trine with Uranus, it's going to be in trine with Pluto. Then the Pluto trine is the big trine. Is that if you can salvage? No, I don't use the word salvage. If you can temper your expectation, you got to figure out where you are, because if you can temper your expectations, you might find that the ability to salvage and reconstruct important one-on-one relationships where one or more person inside the relationship has been severely critical of the other can be salvaged. And it's that Venus Pluto trine. But you have to deal with things as they are and not as you want them to be, right? Because the other thing too is that sometimes with relationships, we can go either way, and it could be seeing through rose-colored glasses or not seeing the person at all, right? Not seeing the person at all. So this is going to be an interesting time on the collective side of things. I keep thinking about like where things are headed with food, and because Virgo, is all about distribution and food. Um, well, production. It's about production. Virgo is about production and distribution. So if you were to take my course, which is available here on the YouTube channel, you will find that when we talk about the second house, the sixth house, and the 10th house, they represent three elements of business and industry. Second house is what? Material, raw material, whether it's ores or rocks or foods, right? Vegetables, livestock, whatever, right? That's all going to be second house. And then what do you do with it? Well, you take it over here to the third house, sixth house rather. And the sixth house, you do shit to it. Like you process it, you put it together, you distribute it, right? So these are the people. There are people in these houses as well. These are the people that work the fields. These are the people that work the farms. These are the people that work the mines. These are the people that work the steel mills, right? All that second house stuff. These are the people that take that stuff and do something with it, right? And then the tenth house is the marketplace, but it's not just the marketplace. It is also the brain trust. This is where Capricorn lives, right? So what do you have with Capricorn? You got management, upper management. So this is how the three houses, earth houses, work together. So when we look at Venus and Virgo, Venus means that there's a relationship to that process. Now, one of the things that I've been reading, like many of you, is the fact that if we go to war, which we currently are, not a whiff, if, there's a very good chance that we'll be fucked, especially when it comes to petroleum fuels. Hello, Neptune, Venus opposition. I'll tell you where it's going to get real hairy. So Mars goes into Sagittarius. That's when it's going to get real hairy, because Sagittarius, if we're just, I mean, it doesn't matter what country you're in, right? Sagittarius is like some other country out there. Now, maybe if the country is a Sagittarian country or it has Sag rising, then it's different. The United States has a Sag rising, by the way, if you use the Sibley chart. So that means that at some point during this Mars transit, it's going to come in, it's going to hit the ascendant, right? The US ascendant. And where is Pisces? in the US chart. It is partially, if you're using Placidus, it is partially in the third and partially in the fourth, right? Because we know that Chiron is in Aries in the fourth house in the US chart. So it's at 20 degrees. So part of the US fourth house is Pisces. And where are we headed? We're headed into the cold season, heating oil, all the things, diesel, heating oil, coal, all those things that keep us warm. You know, if we get this Mars, well, not if, but we will, that Mars square to Neptune, look out. So if I were you and I have my high beams on, I'd be looking at, okay, how are we going to stay warm in the winter? Right? Most places still allow you to burn wood, although it's quite expensive. You can find it, although it's quite expensive. So if I were you and you had a fireplace, I would get myself a high quality wood burning stove, because it's not if, it's when. It's when we're going to have problems with the whole fuel thing, right? And I guarantee you it's going to be when Mars goes into Sagittarius and squares off against Neptune, fighting. Where there used to be a time where we fought for oil. Now it's going to be a time where we're fighting to stop oil. That's what's going to happen. So if I were you, I would figure out how you're going to get through the winter, because it's not going to be cheap. That's my take on it. It's not going to be cheap. So we're going to have to figure that out. It's interesting too, because I talked about how Saturn in Pisces is where they're really going to crack down on petroleum products. We got a bit of a respite with Saturn retrograde. Like the price of oil even went down here. The gas went down here significantly. We were at like $3.35 a gallon, and then it went to like $2.95. Like, what the fuck? What happened there? I think it's back up around $3 now. But when Saturn moves forward, we'll get more restraint in that area with petroleum products. Yeah, it's gonna be a weird time. I'm just saying, it's gonna be a very weird time, and honestly, not one that I'm really looking forward to, because we're gonna have too much to deal with in some ways. Chaos will rule the day. But the good thing about chaos is that every now and then chaos tilts in favor of the common man, right? Sometimes chaos tilts in favor of the plebes, so to speak. It's just the nature of chaos. All right. We are missing a lot of fire and a lot of air out there. This is when I looked at this day, I thought this is a really interesting day with all the earth and water that was available. So I actually put something together, and it encompassed some of that, and it talks about this eclipse that we're in, or we just went in to, right? Let me see if it's all together. Okay. So I was playing with this idea of dark water and dark matter, because that's what seems to be up, especially with the eclipse, right? Scorpio, Sun, true node in Aries, Moon in Taurus, South node in Libra. Not quite exact the way the way that we experienced the other eclipses, but in Taurus, Scorpio, but still nonetheless it's there. Okay. So let me bring this up here. All right. There we go. Spirit into matter. This is your lunar eclipse update. As we go through this, it's not going to be like absolutely definitive, but I'm playing with a couple different things here that are supposed to trigger some thoughts inside of you, right? So this is an exercise in sort of associating what the eclipse is with key phrases. And these are the key phrases that I decided that would be interesting to bring up. And then we're going to get into some charts. Spirit into matter formula. Earth is the matter. Water is the spirit. Scorpio is dark water. Eclipse moon in Taurus is dark earth. So we're looking at the two of them from this idea of dark. And not all darkness is bad. Okay. Not all darkness is good. But this is where we're going to be diving into here. So these are just some of the key phrases. Dark water is poison. Dark water is oil. Dark water knows no depth. Dark water is the primordial void. Dark water is the uncharted spaces. Dark water is the elixir of fear. Dark water is a pool without reflection. Dark water is the anti-baptism. Dark matter lies beneath the surface. Dark matter is the underground. Dark matter is the underworld. They're not always the same. Dark matter is caves. Dark matter is tunnels. Dark matter is basements. Dark matter is dark money. Dark matter is dark time. Dark matter is scorched earth, right? So we're playing, it's playing with some of the heavier tones of the eclipse. It was really interesting. My friend Masaki sent me a video of the temple, the Al-Aqsa temple, right? That's the Rock of the Dome in Jerusalem. And man, I bet you that place on the inside is fucking amazing, right? So one of these guys, I think he was probably a Muslim. Now, I don't know where it came from, but they went down. They've got tunnels, all kinds of crazy tunnels in the Rock of the Dome. Like theoretically, when the Knights Templar crawled underneath that thing, that's where they found, all these relics, including Baphomet and the proof in the pudding that Mary Magdalene went off and had Jesus's kid and all that stuff, right? They found that, and that's where they found it. They found it in the Rock of the Dome. That's supposed to be Solomon's third temple. But of course, it's in possession of the Muslims. So these guys went down there. It's on the video that Masaki sent me. And according to them, they found some explosives that were wired down there. How they got wired in there, I don't know. Right. But this is what we're talking about. Like even that video going beneath the Rock of the Dome and into the tunnels and into the underworld. That that clearly is that when I say underworld, the sort of these cavernous spaces that exist there. So we're dealing with dark water and dark matter with the eclipse. So I'm just playing with some more key phrases here. We are living in the time of dark conception, which we're going to get into in a minute. Scorpio sun, seed of creation, dark moon in Taurus, shadowy courtesan becomes dark mother, dark mater, dark matter. So we're playing with this idea of the earth, right? And matter in a lot. So matter is form, right? Or earth is form, and water is spirit. So with this eclipse, we're dealing with spirit theoretically into matter, but it's not your typical like eclipse. It's not your typical elixir because of the presence of Scorpio and Taurus. And then even where the nodes are, with the true node in Aries and the south node in Libra, it's again, it's not your typical eclipse. It's a very interesting eclipse. All right, so what I did is I put it up here. So this was about as close as I could get with the moon at 4 to 5. You go any further, and then you're going to go into the next day, right? So this is as close as we can get with the eclipse energy. And we can see here that the moon is at the early degrees, so it's in the Taurus decan. And then each of the other luminaries here are in the other various decans. So this would be in the Virgo decan, this would be in the Capricorn decan. So all three positions here are represented by those three decans. And that's what I was talking about with the second, the sixth, and the 10th houses. So this would be the second house, this would be the sixth house, and this would be the 10th house. So this eclipse would have something to do with those three houses as it relates to the things that I was talking about prior to getting to this point. Products, right? Products, resources, distribution, manufacturing. You know, when you see people putting shit together, it's a very Virgo 6th house thing, right? And then sending the products off to the marketplace is a very 10th house thing. So all three of these luminaries are in that position. You don't see it down here with the Scorpio planets. You got 5, you've got 10, and you've got 11. First decan, second decan. So they're dealing with Scorpio Pisces in terms of the expression. So when I see this going on eclipse-wise, my take is that through these three positions, second house, sixth house, 10th house, that this eclipse is going to affect those things, right? It's going to affect how they are either sourced, how they're created, how they're distributed, how they come to market, and who's doing it, right? And on the other side, even though we know that Pisces is related to all things liquid, including gas, including oil, those are all very Piscean. One could certainly make a case for Scorpio to also be related to those things, right? And I would think that perhaps Pisces might be inclusive of not just diesel or gas, but also natural gas, butane. When I think of Scorpio, I think of oil, right? I think of oil. Pisces to me has a lot to do with the refinement, of the process. Although I'm sure that when you have these oil derricks in the North Sea, you get both Scorpio and Pisces together. But when I think of oil, a lot of ways, I think of Scorpio because it's dark, right? I mean, Pisces can be dark too. But the other thing with oil or Scorpio is that it's connected to Taurus, meaning that, for instance, Nixon made a deal, right, with the Saudis. They said, well, you're going to use the dollar as the reserve currency. So anybody that wants to buy oil from you has got to change their whatever, fill in the blank, into a dollar. That's Taurus. Theoretically, even though it's not gold, I mean, a gold, you own that thing theoretically. If I pulled out a $20 bill, it's like, well, this is mine, right? It's mine. Scorpio, it could be yours, but it may not be with you. It might be in your Bitcoin wallet, or it might be in your T-bill somewhere, right? It's like it's not on you. It doesn't have the immediacy of the second house. So with oil, you can see that. You can see the relationship. It's dark, right? It's coming up out of the earth and eventually gets refined. And again, I think that that's a very Piscean kind of operation. Even when they take the oil and they ship it on these massive barges, or the the refined gas, or whatever state it's in, they will ship it from the Middle East to other parts of the world, including the United States. Right? You just shoot them right across the Atlantic, through the Persian Gulf, which could be very problematic, right? So this is what I'm looking at here with this eclipse. That gets back to the Venus-Neptune opposition that I was talking about before. It's like, okay, do you want to be caught flat-footed here? And how much can we really do? If everything started to spiral out of control, then we're really fucked, right? So I think when I look at this eclipse, even though it's like the markets didn't crash yesterday. Again, the overlap of this eclipse is at least, some astrologers say it's 3.5 weeks on either side, right? I would say generously that it's probably a week and a half. This is just me. Because we live in an on-demand world. So we have about a week and a half to see this sorted out, right? Like, even though it just happened yesterday and we're dealing with it today. And by the way, that eclipse did take place in Europe and parts of Africa and part of the Middle East, right? That's where it was visible. So I think this is part of the story that we're dealing with. I think it's a big part of the story. And TBD, to be determined. And some people are living their best lives, and that's great. And some people are feeling very anxious about where we are, and I don't blame them. Can you live your best life and be aware of the hazards of the road? Question mark. I think we're all going to find that out. We're going to find out what we're made of. What we're about to go through will make COVID look like 3 weeks of Saturday morning detention. That's what it'll look like. Now, I reserve the right to have something else enter into the equation. Remember, chaos can be our friends. But the way things are lining up astrologically with these eclipses, and this one, where we're actually dealing with dark water and dark matter in all three areas represented by the three decans of the various luminaries here, something's going to be affected. So prior to COVID, one of the things that I was telling people, and if you were listening to the shows back then, was like, you need to prep up. You need to prep up. And people that listened to me, they were fine. They didn't have to run to the grocery store and go buy toilet paper. Okay. So what I would say now is top your preps. And if you have to hunker down for the winter, and this energy thing could be either really expensive or spotty, I would look into, if you can, get a high quality gas stove and wood burning stove. Invest in it. Get yourself a bunch of wood. And that's just to keep yourself warm. Some of these wood burning stoves you can actually cook on, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah, this is where we're going right here. So tons of earth, tons of water, and those are really the issues of the eclipse, right? We have them in abundance, but they may be working at cross purposes in some ways. The other thing is that this has a lot to do with debt. And one of the things that I do agree with other astrologers is with material things, with this eclipse, if you need to let go of them, let go of them. And it's hard because we're dealing with a lot of fixed planet action, right? But if you need to let go of something, let go. That brings back our friend Venus and the trine with Uranus and the trine with Pluto. Okay. Well, before I go and move on from this, one of the things that I think is happening, this goes back right here. Where is it? It's about revelation. Did I have dark revelation? Things are being revealed. And that's what happens with these eclipses. That which is hidden is revealed. And it's going to be a lot for some people. And for others, like, hey, look, been there. How much more? How much more? How much more do we need to have revealed? Well, we'll find out. All right. So so I was playing with this. This is the lunar eclipse review. So when I was also looking at this as a form of conception, which we have delved into with Scorpio and the seed, right? Scorpio is the seed and Taurus is the egg. Usually we have Easter, right? Easter is usually in the month of sometimes either late Aries or early Taurus, right? It's the May day. It's the springtime. It's the time of fertility. But you need the seed to fertilize the egg. You need the water to make the ground moist so the seed can sprout, right? This is the axis of all of that. So this time, right now, this weekend is conception. This is also a conception period. This is what I was talking about up here. Dark conception, Scorpio, sun, seed of creation, dark moon and Taurus. Shadowy courtesan becomes dark mother, dark mater, dark matter. So I went out 9 months. So I did the 9-month birth cycle, which is 9 months is it's a 90-degree angle from the day that we start the cycle, right? So we started in Scorpio, and then the 90-degree angle will be what? It'll be in 9 months, it'll be Leo. Shorter period of time, that 90-degree angle would be Aquarius, right? But it's not. It's going to be Leo. So that is the time for, at least in the human form, for creation, for insemination to come to fruition, right? Creation to come to fruition, and that 9-month period, because it's at a 90-degree angle, and we talked about this again before, is that many times, but not always, the delivery is difficult. It mirrors the angle of the square, right? It's like it's incredibly painful. Some women think they're going to die. Sometimes they do die. It's tricky. Sometimes babies come out at angles, and it's not always. Some people are blessed. And it's just watermelon seed, but it's that 9-month period. Literally, right? It's a 9-month period where the conception and the creation comes out at that 90-degree angle. All right, so where is it? So this is what we're looking at 9 months from now. So whatever is going on, right, this weekend with this eclipse, this is the outcome 9 months from now. We'll also be in a different eclipse cycle. We'll be in the Aries Libra eclipse cycle than the one that we're in now. So you'll see some of that in October. But this is different. And what's interesting about this chart is that you can see the moon in Taurus right there at 4. 9 months from now, the moon is in Taurus at 10. So to me, this means that we are indeed, something is giving birth during this time, right? Because we have the two moons in Taurus that are connecting us. And it's on the kind of the outer fringe of the outer ring of the T-square with Pluto, but it's still in there with that 10th degree. So we have a T-square of the moon and the sun and Pluto, which to me would be reminiscent of a fairly challenging birth. So 9 months from now in September, whatever kind of perturbations, whatever is being stirred up in the cauldron over this weekend, it comes to fruition here. Now, what's also interesting is the placement of Algol in 9 months. And I can tell you right now, based on that Algol placement and the square to Mercury, that is a major, it's a major action on free speech. A major action on free speech. Algol, of course, represents the fixed star. Algol represents the neck, the throat, and the dismemberment of the head from the body. Right? We get the word alcohol from Algol, and when somebody's drunk, they lose their head. In the constellation of Perseus is Algol, the fixed star, which is also known as the Medusa star, because Perseus slayed Medusa and used Medusa as a talisman and a weapon and turned people to stone, which sounds very Tartarian to me, if you ask me. But that's this. So this is okay. How would I read this? Here's how I'd read it. I would read it in that in 9 months' time, there will be a degree of momentum born out of this period that people will be not very happy with. Because Mercury in Virgo is critical, right? It's critical. And one thing, if Mercury is not afflicted in Virgo, it is also very truthful because it is analytical and it bases its communication, articulation, and ideas on facts, right? As clear as they can be. Data points, facts, analysis. And in that space, you can find pieces and evidence for the truth if it adds up, right? So here we have this square with Uranus on Algol, which is not great. People are fed up, right? And look where we are. This is July 28th. How close are we to the election? Very close. August, September, October, 3 months in, right? 3 months in. Big deal. Here we have Mercury with Saturn, a very unique kind of inconjunct going on with Neptune and Pluto, and then Saturn, of course, on the other side. And I could just see all kinds of invective and spell casting and trying to knock people, off their course. But I also feel like that there's a tremendous amount of faith in some ways. Some of this really feels a lot like end time stuff, biblical end time, even though I think that's already happened. It just feels like that. We're at the 29th degree, which is the final degree of the zodiac, right? To me, this is the crucifixion degree, and it's retrograding. This is such a fascinating time. This is just 9 months from yesterday. And so we have the inconjunct with Neptune. The inconjunct with Saturn is with Venus. So it's really Neptune and Pluto who are kind of on the back end here. There's, oh man, I could just see people during this time fucking losing their minds. Like religious zealotry is in the air, but also people trying to keep their head on straight, right? Literally keep their heads on. This is a very powerful time. got a Sun-Mars sextile too. That's interesting. Mars is in Gemini, super restless, square Mercury. There are words that are said during this period that you just can't take back. I know it sounds way out there. It's 9 months away, but whatever's going on right now, whatever is happening between Thursday, roughly, right, and the next week and a half of this eclipse, it all is part of this. It's all part of the stew. And then the true node is in the final decan of Aries, right? It's in the Aries decan. It's just moving into that decan at that time. That's when it's most potently Aries. Interesting. So here we are in the dark time of the year. Something's being created, and we'll find out 9 months from now. What's this? So this is the synastry chart. I just wanted to show this because you can see the moon here 9 months out, right? How close it is with Jupiter. So it's something big. Something big. Let's return to the giants. Not quite a T-square. Or I'm sorry, Grand Cross. A lot of red. Yeah, so the reason I put this together was to show you the proximity of the moon. And there's Chiron. Oh, man. There's Chiron, and it's at what degree? Let's see. Transiting Chiron. 2022. So it's already past the US, but it will go back, right? That's what Chiron does. Retrogrades, it'll go back to 20. I think it's interesting that Chiron's at 20 degrees. And it's in Aries, which is the 4th month, right? So you get a little 420 action there. A little time, space, word magic. Okay, so this was something I was playing with as well because, you know, they're lingering in the background with all three of these Abrahamic religions is a figure who emerges, who becomes sort of the religious savior of that religion, right? So whether it's Christ or the Moshiach or the Mahdi, who or what will arise out of the dark conception? The Mahdi, the Moshiach, the Antichrist, the world teacher. This is sort of the time of dark. This 9 month period, right? This 9 month period of being pregnant with possibility. But it's dark. It's a dark conception, right? That's the biggest takeaway from this eclipse. So here we go. 9 month cycle includes personal conception as well. What are you creating? Let's bring it down. Bring it down to you. What are you creating? What is your own personal conception? Feel through the dark. Feel through the dark to bring your creation, no matter how humble, to fruition. Because, by the way, you have a world and a life going on as well. It's not just the mundane affairs of the world, although we're being swept up into them. So your personal conception, to feel through the dark, to bring your creation, no matter humble, to fruition, even if born out of the need to survive, right? Create. We're creative beings. The eclipse cycle, or the eclipse furnace of creation, October 14th, air, fire, October 29th, water, earth, April 8th, fire, air. This is all part of, you know, it reminds me of pottery. It reminds me of like putting something into a kiln. Because with pottery, you start off with this thing that's like mud, right? It's earth and water. And that had to come from someplace, you know, at some point, sort of this primordial fire of creation. And then you mold it, you shape it, and then you throw it back in the kiln where you come into contact with fire and air again, right? Because the air will dry it out and the fire will glaze it, right? I mean, that's usually what happens. So to me, this is a very interesting and important cycle. And by the time we get to April 8th, I feel like it's not a lot of time, but it feels to me like this is very important. Know where your water is and where it's coming from, and do your very best to have a peaceful relationship with the earth. That includes your neighbors, by the way, right? Know your neighbors, know your earth, know your place, know your water. Get to know it. Because by the time we come into this mother of an eclipse here, it'll be very important. Okay. That's what I worked on today. Why don't we get into some other stuff? Let's get into some other stuff. Let's get into Gen X. Shall we? Let's do a little Gen X. All right, so I brought this up today. This is the thumbnail that I used right here. And I use the eclipse for a reason, right? Because it's on the Aries Libra axis. And what do we know about Gen X? The majority of them were born under Pluto and Libra. You got some early ones, circa like 67, 68, right around there, right? So going up to 83, 84, 85, Pluto and Scorpio kicks into gear. So when I see this eclipse and I see the Libra Aries axis, I think of Gen X, and guess what? It forms an X. Now, we did have the eclipse in October, but it is not included in this for demonstration purposes, but also because that eclipse was an annular eclipse. These two eclipses are total eclipses, which is what sets them apart slightly. We don't want our annular eclipse to feel bad. We've talked about the annular eclipse in relationship to these two eclipses quite a bit, right? But I just wanted to use these two eclipses to stress the importance of what it means to Generation X, which I think is sort of criminally left out of this discussion of generations, right? It's almost like it goes baby boomers, little Gen X, millennials. And I'm Jen Jones of Pluto and Virgo, and it's a thing, right? It's its own thing. We're just kind of hanging out. But it really, Gen X is like, the middle Brady's, right? The middle Brady's of the Brady Bunch are Gen X. And I think it's interesting that this guy, Mike Johnson, became the Speaker of the House just after the eclipse, right? Now, it's not the same eclipse that will happen here, but it is a precursor to this eclipse. And Mike Johnson is Gen X. He's a nutty. He's a nutty dude, right? He is a nutty dude. He is really very much an Aquarian. And I don't know the time of his chart, but we're going to look at it. We're going to look at his chart. And I think what's interesting is that he's, whether you like him or not, and he's one of these really hardcore Baptist dispensationalists. So he believes in, more than likely, he believes in the rapture. I've heard he's also a Mason. It wouldn't surprise me at all. He's from Shreveport, Louisiana. And my father was born in Shreveport, Louisiana. And my grandmother, who was from the South, who was a Taurus, we call it Shreveport. She couldn't do the SH sound. She called shrimp. I don't know why she couldn't do that. Shrimp. Shreveport. Weird, right? I never heard her use the word shit before or at all. What would she say? Fit? I don't, that's weird. Anyway, so he's from Shreveport. He's a Baptist. They believe in what? They believe in fucking Armageddon, the end times, Revelation, the rapture, Jesus Rambo. Like that's the world he comes from. First words out of his mouth when he was elected. The first thing I'm going to do is put together a huge aid package for our good friends in Israel and who we have to stand, right? Like he was adamant about this shit. Of course he would be. Because it is for him more than just based on his faith, it is an ideological relationship. There has to be one Israel. No two-state solution. No two-state solution. Because if you had a two-state solution, well, Jesus isn't going to come back. And there are people who believe in this, right? They believe in this. And there are people in government and in the army who not only believe in it, but sometimes they prime the pumps a little bit. Sometimes they'll let something go. You know, yeah, if that hastens our earthly demise here, we get sucked up into the rapture and we can watch everything from up there with just incredible lounge chairs and the best theater snacks ever. I'm all in, right? This is where this guy is coming from. Now, he was in Israel with Jim Jordan not long ago. So he's been there. He's been to the Holy Land, right? And one of the reasons why he got elected is because everybody was agreeing with him on the package, right? So you have this Aquarian guy. Now, the one thing I'll say about him is that he is unpredictable. You'll see his chart. I mean, Aquarians are just unpredictable in general, right? He also reminds me of somebody. He reminds me of a comedian. And if you've seen him, he's actually pretty funny. Like he has a very quirky sense of humor. And he's a total Trump guy. He's theoretically all about, liberating the J6 people. Right. So he's got that part in him. And he also adopted, I think, a son in 2021. So he has two sons. They're the same age, 14, which I think is, again, a little quirky. And he has two daughters. So he has four kids, comes from a family of four. And his father was a fireman. He's like a fire captain. And this guy wanted to be a fireman. He's got Mars and Aries. So it fits, right? He wanted to be a fireman. And then his father got into a big fire, burns over 80% of his body. And then the dream of being Fireman Sam went away. But he's funny. And he reminds me at times of, he has the same facial mannerisms at times as Bill Hicks. Just watch him for a little bit. He's got some Bill Hicks mannerisms. Now, of course, I'm not saying he's Bill Hicks. I wouldn't say that. Now, we're talking about him because now all of a sudden, he is the third most powerful person in the United States government. Biden, Harris, Mike Johnson. And I'm looking at this guy and I'm asking myself, could this dude be president of the United States? Whatever that is, right? He just kind of popped in out of nowhere. I think he got elected in 2017. So he's been in Washington for 6 years, So he was part of that. He took office in 2017. So he's part of that 2016 election cycle where he came in with Trump. So 6 years. And I'm not saying he's going to be, but there's something unusual about this guy that he just came out. And the weird part is that he is a hardcore evangelical. He believes in covenant marriage. And covenant marriage is when two people can apply for a no-fault divorce. Like, it's much more difficult to divorce somebody under a covenant marriage. So he's a big covenant marriage guy, anti-abortion, prayer in school. Like, it all lines up. But apparently he's also a Mason, which doesn't surprise me. Maybe that's why he got all those votes. But it just strikes me as odd because he came in, he's like this dark horse, right? He just kind of came in out of nowhere. It was like, and maybe that was always the plan. Like, let's throw Jim Jordan out there. Jim Jordan. And really the plan always was to get this guy. There's a picture of him and Jim Jordan in Israel hanging out together. So he wasted no time in putting that package together. He's Gen X. He's the first. Would you count Nikki Haley? Nikki Haley might be Gen X, but you don't want her to be. Trust me on this. You don't want Nikki Haley to be Gen X. He's the first Gen X leader in this country at a federal level that ranks this high. And I feel like it's the start of Gen X being activated by these eclipses to start to move into positions of power and responsibility, because Gen X is the bridge between the past and the future. That's the role that they play, right? So Gen X, in my estimation, is very custodial. Not custodial in the sense that like Virgo is custodial, but Gen X is looking at fostering relationships for the future. That's what it's doing. Meanwhile, having one foot in the past and being able to curate the past. This is Gen X's role culturally. Foster the future and curate the past. Because once you get past Gen, not every millennial knows, about, I don't know. What was the action figure that Stretch Armstrong? Not every millennial knows about Stretch Armstrong. I knew about Stretch, but I was old. I was too old to buy that shit. But Gen X does, right? Gen X knows a little bit about Rock'em Sock'em Robots. That's the role. So you're going to see more of this generation begin. And it's kind of, in some ways, a bit of a lost generation. It's the latchkey generation. It's the, hey, my parents are boomers and they're going away for the weekend generation, right? So it's a generation that tends to be very independent. And the ironic part is that Pluto and Libra needs other people, but they were not raised in an environment where some of those people were readily accessible. But with these eclipses, you're going to see more of Gen X coming online. It's just the way it is, right? And I think it's really, I think it's good for them because astrologically, they've got great placements in the outer planets. Uranus in Sag, Uranus in Scorpio, and Neptune in Sag. Great placements for outer planets. I think Nicole Bobert's a Gen Xer. No, what's her name? The Christy Nome. I think Christy Nome's a Gen Xer. So you're starting to see them move into these governmental positions, right? For better or worse, whatever you believe in government. I mean, they could be advocates. Joe Rogan is Gen X, and he certainly has taken a lead role. And we'll see more of this. And it's going to be brought on by these eclipses because of the axis. So let's take a look at Mike Johnson's chart. Who is this guy? Paging Mike Johnson. I think I threw his chart out. All right, hold on. I got all these. No. Let me do this. Please bear with me. Please bow with me. We're watching these guys from England have Texas barbecue for the first time. Oh my God. It's fucking hilarious. I thought they were going to mess their pants with this barbecue. It was Terry Black's in Jollyville, Texas. Look, pretty fucking good, I gotta say. All right, let's take a look at. Now I don't know his birth time, but I kind of pegged him for Virgo rising, and because Virgo, like coming out of nowhere, right? Like you don't expect Virgo to make a play. Let's take a look at this chart. All right, here's Mike Johnson. So you can see with Mars. Now I played with a couple different rising signs. I played with Gemini rising. What else did I play with? Aquarius rising. With Aquarius rising, it puts Gemini in his fifth house. There's no planets in the fifth house. But he has 2 boys and 2 girls, right? He adopted a black kid, I think in 2021. So he's the same age as his son, right? So they're both 14, and he just made this statement that his black son faces challenges in a way that his white son doesn't. And that went out to the world, right? It was a talking point to the world. So I felt like that would be very Gemini-like up on the midheaven. And the other thing, and again, I have no idea what his, but he looks very manicured, like Virgo rising does. You go back and see other pictures of him before he went to Washington, D.C. and started making the real good money, right? That real good coiffure money, right? Somebody going to charge him like $150 for a haircut, tax write-off, by the way. He didn't look as good. He looked a little rough around the edges, but he's cleaned up his act, and he looks a lot like a Virgo rising. And with the moon in the 12th house, kind of very backroomy stuff, like backroom deals, with the moon and Leo just kind of lurking back there. He's coming off of being born on an eclipse, right? Like if you see the sun here, which is also interesting because he was named Speaker of the House in between 2 eclipses, and he's born on an eclipse. So that in and of itself is fascinating, right? And he's got that first responder, Mars and Aries, like the father who's the fire captain. So I tried to play around with this in a way that could make some sense based on the details of his life that I know. But I put his son, I got him as a Virgo rising, and the sun in the 5th house. Guy looks like he's having a lot of fun. That's the other thing. He looks like I would not underestimate his political acumen. He may come across at times as kind of a goofy ass Aquarian, but do not underestimate his political acumen. He's got, look at that, he's got Saturn conjunct Algol That's interesting because 9 months Uranus is going to be on his Saturn. That's very interesting. You know, I'm going to go on record here. This guy has, oddly enough, presidential material. Not that I'm hoping that he wants to be president. Trust me. I don't want to live in dispensationalist America. Not that I have a problem with him. Just live your life and I'll live mine. But do not underestimate his political acumen. He's got Mercury and Capricorn, right, lurking behind the sun. So you'll see the kind of goofy Aquarian, hey, I got two 14-year-olds, one's black, one's white, right? Like, and speaking about it in a very Aquarian kind of way. You'll see that with him. But he's actually quite smart. He's politically adept. Mercury is right on his, Pluto is right on his Mercury. So of course, it's like he got tapped on the shoulder. Keep your eye on Mike Johnson, not for anything that he's going to be like, this great head of state. This guy is going to be fast tracked. He's going to be fast tracked because he also has Pluto in trine with his, Mercury in trine with his own Pluto, right? Right there. So Mercury in trine with Pluto. So you'll see the kind of the goofy ass Aquarius stuff, but he is very good at politicking behind the scenes, which is how I think he got to where he is today. Obviously, he has the moon in Leo. He also has the south node in Leo. So generally speaking, right, people, if they take astrology into account, Leo is the bloodline sign. It is the bloodline sign. And he comes from a fireman, humble beginnings, whatever, right? But if you're looking, and I did a whole show in this called the Leo code, and it shows how prominent Leo is in the charts of presidents. He's got a Leo moon, and it's conjunct Ceres, and it's just coming off the south node, and it's in an eclipse. Who else do we know who was born on a lunar eclipse? Donald Trump. So he's got an interesting chart. He's got Jupiter. Another reason why he jumped into the Israeli aid. He's got Jupiter in Sag, and he's got Mars trine Jupiter. Do not underestimate this guy. He can be very fiery, very passionate, and very persuasive. Very, very persuasive. And with that Mercury Saturn trine, he is connected to very prominent people. And who knows, maybe it's the lobbyists, maybe it's the heads of the lodges, right? This guy's connected. He's very connected. The weird part of his chart is Venus. He has Venus in Pisces, which can have him. It's a planet that creates a relationship with empathy, right, and compassion, but there's nothing connecting it. It's almost oddly singletoned up, right? What do you got? You got a quintile to Saturn, and that's it. That's it. So when you have a planet like that, and I guess you have the inconjunct and the yod with the moon and what else is it? Uranus. I mean, I guess that could count in some ways, but it really doesn't. This is really interesting. So that's the quincunx, right? And then we would see the other quincunx. Where is it? Down here, Pluto, right there. Where is that quincunx? Uranus. Uranus, right there. This guy has a very unique ability to bring people together. He got All the Democrats will vote for him. Don't you think that's interesting? I do. I think it's interesting. He has the ability to bring people together. I'm not here to politic for him, right? I'm not here to say that this guy is going to be the savior, political savior. There's something very interesting. That Mars trine with Jupiter, that is really fiery. This he's not. This dude is going places. It would be very interesting to see him if something would happen to Biden Harris. This guy would be president. He might, as a president, he might blow the doors off of people. Not because he is somebody I want to be president, just to be clear about that. This guy's got an odd charisma, a very odd charisma, but he has it. And he's the planner. Do not take the Aquarian thing at face value. Here's your Pluto in Libra, 1972. He's a pig. He's a water pig. And the pig is the last sign in the Chinese system before it goes to the first sign, which is the rat. Pigs are Scorpio in that system. The rat is Sagittarius. So he's very shrewd. This is a shrewd guy. And he doesn't have a lot of water in his chart, but it's that singleton that really makes it stand out, right? It totally makes it stand out. And he can bring people together with that Venus in Pisces. It's and you're dealing with the moon, which is people's imagination, and the collective, and Uranus, which is media. He's only been there for a week. And I know all the conservatives are blowing smoke up his ass. Do not sleep on this guy. He does have the Saturn-Neptune opposition in his chart. To me, that's a debt. He's got a debt to pay. I don't know what the debt is. He's got a debt to pay. Maybe it's to Israel. Who knows? He was onward Christian soldier with that shit. And again, I don't know the birth time. I was just playing around with sort of how he looks fucking perfect all the time with the Virgo on the ascendant. I could go with Libra on the ascendant as well, right? But if he was Libra rising, he'd have Pluto and Uranus in his first house. And that's pretty self-destructive. People that have Pluto and Uranus in their first house go through self-destructive phases and trials, right? So but he hasn't done that. He hasn't done that. There you go. Mike Johnson. Welcome to the story. And more importantly, I do believe he's representative of Generation X, who really, if you think about it, you got these old fucking fossils around, You've fucking Biden, even Trump is old. The country needs younger leadership, but not too young. And Gen X is starting to hit that sweet spot, right? They're just starting to, move into their, like this guy's 51. It's perfect. He's gone through his Chiron return. That's what the country needs. For the next 10 years, well, I hopefully will see more Gen X in the ranks and play the balance between having a relationship with the future and curating the past. That's what their role is. Okay. Wanted to jump into something else here, but it's related to what we're talking about. Let me go to my Twitter account. And I talked about this on my Twitter account. And this is a video that's gone viral. Ironically, well, not ironically, I was surprised. Was I surprised that people agreed with me? No. But there were some people who wanted to see this young woman through a particular lens. And that's okay. You can look at it though, but that's not how I saw her. And this is the young woman who got her 9 to 5 job and just totally like burned her out. Let me play the video, and I have an astrological take on this. More than likely, she's Pluto and Sagittarius. Okay, she's too young to be a millennial. Pluto and Sagittarius. We'll get into them in a second. So let's play this and let's hear her out.
I know I'm probably just being so dramatic and annoying, but this is my first job, like my first 9 to 5 job after college, and I'm in person and I'm commuting in the city, and it takes me fucking forever to get there. There's no way I'm gonna be able to afford living in the city right now, so that's off the table. Like fucking duh. If I was able to walk to work, and it'd be fine, but I'm not. So it literally takes me, like, I leave here, like I get on the train at 7:30 and I don't get home till like 6:15 earliest, and then like I don't have time to do anything. I want to shower, eat my dinner, and go to sleep. I don't have time or energy to cook my dinner either. Like, I don't have energy to work out. Like, that's out the window. Like, I'm so upset. Oh my God. Nothing to do with my job at all, but just like the 9 to 5 schedule in general is crazy. Being in the office 9 to 5, like if it was remote, you get off at 5 and you're home and everything's fine. But like, I'm not home. It takes me long to get home, and like people that drive to the office, like it doesn't, you don't get off at 5. And I know it could be worse. I know I could be working longer, but like I literally get off, it's pitch black. Like I don't have energy. How do you have friends? Like how do you have time to like meet like a guy? I don't know. Like how do you have time for like dating? Like I don't have time for anything, and I'm like so stressed out. And I'm also getting my period, so that's why I'm all emotional. But like, am I so dramatic? It's fine.
You know, look, a lot of people ripped her, and I think unfairly. And I'll tell you why. Number one, she's not bitching about working, right? She's not bitching about working. She's bitching about the fact that it takes her time to get to work. She works, and by the time she gets home, she's spent. She doesn't want to do a damn thing, right? And she's on the hamster wheel. She's on the hamster wheel. She likes her job. It's not like she's complaining about not. She's not saying, "Hey, you need to pay me to stay home," right? She's bringing up really valid points about quality of life, 9 to 5, and work. She could probably telecommute 3 days a week. Maybe go on a Monday, have a meeting on Monday, have a meeting on Friday. 3 days a week, work at home, right? I don't see a problem with that. But a lot of people like jumped down her throat because they felt like she was an entitled snowflake brat. And I don't see that. What I see is somebody who is bringing something to the table about work, work and quality of life. And what's interesting is my mother heard this, and she's in her 80s. She's Pluto and Cancer, and she heard it, and she just chimed right in and totally supported this young girl, this young woman, because that was my mother, right? That was my mother back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And she had no fucking life. She had no life. And I remember her coming home, 5:30 at night, 6 o'clock at night, just dog ass tired from, a 50-mile commute, most of which was bumper to bumper traffic, and then cooking dinner and then doing it all over again the next day. She had zero, zero left for anything else, right? We got the bare minimum of her in the house, which was great. I mean, her bare minimum was great, washing, cleaning, feeding, and that was it. She had no emotional bandwidth for anything else. And, we were, as a family with two people working, we were struggling, right? I was young, and she really responded to this young woman. And I think it's fucking ridiculous that, that we have got to superimpose our model of the world. Well, we did this and I did this. And, when I was young, it's a different fucking world. We didn't have computers when I was growing up. Right? It was a different world. I mean, I had jobs when I was young that fucking most people, you wouldn't have these jobs anymore. You just wouldn't. They don't exist. I remember one time I had this job. I was a greeter. Okay. I wasn't at Walmart. No, I worked for this company that it was I don't know how the fuck I got this job. It was just, they were older, and these people were really cool. They were older. They were cool. They lived in a nice place in like Belmont, California, with a nice garden, a nice pool. I'm like, man, life's been good to you. And they liked me. So what I would do is I would go to, I would have a list of people that just moved in, and I would go to their house and I would greet them. And I would have coupons and shit, right? And I got paid for that, but I also got paid for signing people up to, to do the greetings. So, and I was good at that. Like I was pretty good at sales. So I would sign people up, and I did it for maybe 2 months. And I remember one time this kind of sloshed housewife let me in and kept me there for a while. Not that I was not into it. Right. But would you like a glass of wine? Right. It's like, not really. I'm just here to greet and get you to buy some shit. But you wouldn't have that job anymore. You have the internet. You have a virtual greeter. You have an app. That job doesn't exist. It's a weird job. And I know a lot of you also have jobs. They don't exist anymore. Like, oh yeah, isn't that quaint? Yeah, we don't do that anymore. So I don't have a problem with her lament, because it's fucking prehistoric. And just because the schedule is prehistoric and what they could do. And maybe it's like, hey, hang out here for 3 months. Just do this for 3 months. And if you're good and you're responsible, then you know what? Spend 3 days at home. Come in on Monday for a Monday meeting, what we're going to do that week, and then a wrap-up meeting on Friday. The other 3 days a week, telecommute it. I bet she'd be open to that. Why not? Why not? We have the technology. Fucking use it, right? And I think we especially if we've been so entrained to look at some of these younger people who have shown flashes of being fucking ridiculous. I don't think she's one of them. I think she's trying to come to terms with the fact she likes her job, but the way it's set up is fucked. And by the way, if she did live in the city is dangerous. If that was my daughter, I wouldn't want her to live in the city. Not now. So I began to think about work and the nature of work and how different astrological generations have dealt with work. And again, we're going to bring Gen X into the mix. If we go back in time far enough, well, here's what I did. Let me show you what I did. It mostly fits. What I did is I took Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I put it, I poured in Generations by Pluto. Okay. So we have the bottom of Maslow's pyramid, right? So this is all about theoretically work. and how each generation deals with work. So I could have started with Pluto and Cancer. I probably should have. But I went with Pluto and Gemini, which is physiological, meaning that you need a structure around you. That is the bottom rung, right? That is the bottom rung. And when you go back in time and look at those people with Pluto and Gemini, those people went through the Depression. And they had to do more than one thing on many occasions to make their make ends meet. Like there was a lot of drifters, there was a lot of homelessness, right? There were a lot of people in soup lines. You know, Pluto and Gemini, you're definitely in the Depression era wheelhouse. Those people have kids. And that's Pluto and Cancer. And there are people with Pluto and Cancer that are still around. My mother is one of them, right? And the most important thing to these people in this generation, safety, having a home, having a safe home, living in the suburbs, right? That's what Pluto and Cancer did. And I'll never forget, we had this house, and it was really very modest, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, decent sized lot, swimming pool in the back. That was a good point. And my father, it's during the 70s, my father wanted to buy another house. You know, it was like, hey, his friends were doing it. Buy another house. Have an income producing property. Use it for taxes, right? My mother said no. She said no. Because why? Because Pluto and Cancer, she wanted safety. She didn't want to risk losing a house. Right? So this generation, Pluto and Cancer, they work their ass off to live in a safe place, right? To live in the suburbs in an area where they can hang out with their friends, or, you know, they could basically trust that their kids would be okay, right? And they worked for that stuff. That's what they did. Now we get to belonging and love. We get into Pluto and Virgo. I'm sorry, Pluto and Leo. Hello, belonging and love. Summer of love. The love generation. Otis Redding, Monterey Pop. They call this the love generation. That's Pluto and Leo. That's what they were working for. Belonging and love. Right? Whatever love was. Loving what you were doing. Creativity, film, art, music, together. Right? Woodstock. That's the generation. That's what they were working towards. And you would look at, I remember, what's the guy? The guy who does the sausages. It's like these collectives. Like you would have these collectives, like there were these cooks in the Bay Area back in the 60s and the 70s that were starting to kind of come together and use farm to table products. And, you know, this whole kind of California cuisine world comes out of it. It was a group, right? It was a group of people that were doing it. Like groups were really big in the 60s. And to some extent in the 70s, right? That's when Pluto and Leo started to make its mark, 60s and 70s. And work for them was about that. And again, we're playing with Maslow, but it works pretty well here, actually. Pluto and Virgo, esteem, absolutely. Like, let's have purpose. Let's have purpose here. Let's have purpose in our work. That's what I grew up with, right? It wasn't just work. I wanted to find work with meaning, work that would give me a sense of self-esteem. That, yeah, I relate to being this. I'm good at this. This actually represents my talents, and I get to help people. When I get to help people, theoretically, I feel better about myself, right? Pluto and Virgo. So each of these generations is rooted in work. Now, I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't mind if if cognitive and aesthetic were swapped, because it would fit a little bit better, but I could still tell you that it works, right? Because Pluto in Libra wants to understand dynamics between people. It wants to understand relationship, not just relationship, but the relationship with things, like the relationship with their boomer parents that left them home too long without being supervised, right? Even though it's still pretty cool, right? Pluto in Libra is cognitive. That's what I think. Libra in the chart is the sign, and the seventh house is the house where the self becomes aware of the self, because the self becomes aware of the other. It happens there, right? So Pluto in Libra is cognitive. And being cognitive is also being close to being conscious, right? And Pluto in Libra, I believe, is a generation that has a degree of consciousness and self-awareness baked into it. So, yes, a cognitive relationship with work, meaning that they are gaining some degree of self-understanding about their role theoretically in the scheme of things via relationship with others. Now, when you get into Pluto and Scorpio, the word aesthetic comes up. And again, I almost wish I could swap them, but I can make a case for Pluto and Scorpio being aesthetic. I'll tell you why. The millennials come out of hipsterism, right? The roots of the millennials are in hipsterism. And there is something very aesthetic about being a hipster. Like, you have to have the right pork pie hat, or you have to have the right, fill in the blank, whatever kind of attire or wear, or you have to listen to the right music. You can't just listen to some fucking commercial shit. You've got to listen to, I don't know, what would be good hipster music. What's the guy's Devondra Barnhart or something like that, right? Or Of Montreal, or Arcade Fire, right? I mean, that's kind of a little more mainstreamy, but you know what I'm talking about. And that shit is in the millennials. It is in Pluto and Scorpio. And even to the point where, and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, even to the point where they are dealing with the transformation of their relationship to the mainstream, right? To culture in general, which they have to. They have to transform the relationship to it in order to be vital. Even that, in many cases, is aesthetic. Like, it has a look and it has a feel. Like, if you go to a millennial restaurant, or a restaurant run by millennials that's like farm to table, it's a good fucking feel. They get it. They nail it. They understand it, right? There's something inherent about what they're doing and how they're presenting everything that is very aesthetic. Somebody ought to tell Tim Pool that, though. He needs a little bit of an upgrade with the studio. By the way, Tim Pool, I wanted to talk about Tim Pool as it relates to Pluto and Scorpio millennials. Tim Pool, he could clearly be a member of the alphabet agencies, right? Like, I've talked about that with Tim Pool. Like, he could be somebody who is Intel, right? Because he has such a cozy fucking relationship with YouTube. And not everybody gets that. That said, I will say this about Tim Pool, is that he does he does to me fit the mold of the millennial who has said no to the popular culture and is creating something on their own, right? Again, whatever you think of his little hangout in West Virginia with, his people and his band and his music, and I think they're going to open a cafe, right? This is what he's doing. And I tip my cap to him. I tip my beanie to him, because this is what a millennial is supposed to do. If they don't like the physical interface the with the culture, they're supposed to recreate it and do it in their own way. That is what Pluto and Scorpio is supposed to do, right? But there, so when we get to this place, right? Again, Pluto and Libra is the bridge between the past and the future. But when we get to this place of Pluto and Scorpio, work means something different. It means something completely different. And the aesthetic value arises out of the thing that they are in the act of transformation with, and then that they could bring an artistic and creative value to that, right? But that's what Pluto and Scorpio needs. They can't do work wholly and fully unless they do that. They have to die to the dominant paradigm in their own way. We talked about this before. When they do, then their relationship with work will be very different. It is not the same as previous generations. You get to Pluto and Sag, you're up to self-actualization. And to me, Pluto, that young woman is a Gen Z. And she wants to self-actualize. But self-actualization is not her work. It is not the totality of her self-actualization. I mean, by the time we get to this part of the pyramid, I mean, theoretically, we should be up in that ninth house area anyway, where we are contemplating big ideas and big philosophy and big overarching narratives and stories, because we've got all of this beneath us, right? And then, theoretically, with that wisdom, that knowledge, the download from the universe, then the self-actualization occurs. I mean, that really is the ninth house. When you are operating in the ninth house, you are an open channel for all that is. Like literally your crown theoretically is connected to the midheaven, right? We're what's outside of the sphere comes rushing into the sphere. And with Pluto and Sagittarius, that's where they're supposed to operate from, that place, like my guy, Dr. Narco Longo, and some of the other people that I've met through Pluto and Sagittarius, they're about being inspired, right? And they're self-actualizing based on their inspiration. As a whole, it's a generation that is meant to work at a higher level. It's a generation, believe it or not, it's a generation of teachers. It's a generation of spiritual teachers. And there has to be self-actualizing. You have to be a self-actualized individual in order to teach others, or else you're teaching from a place that's, not whole, right? So it also dovetails with a massive shift in technology. We don't have to put in the same kind of man hours or woman hours in order to do the things that we used to do. Doesn't take as long. The structures are different, and we haven't even begun to give AI a hug, and that's coming. So the whole idea in a really healthy society, honestly, is that AI or mechanization is used to do things that we could do and maybe oversee. But you know what? We're going to use that time in order to, I don't know, meditate, walk in the woods, have more communion. I mean, theoretically, this is how this thing is supposed to roll, right? But also, to some degree, even co-create, to use those tools in a way to free up time so that the individual could spend more time doing other things that could be theoretically much closer to expressing their essence, right? And Pluto and Sag is kind of that generation where self-actualized, they become teachers. And then you get into transcendence. And I put Pluto and Cap, Pluto and Aqua, and Pluto and Pisces all at the top of the pyramid for transcendence. Although Pluto and Capricorn and Gen A, they're going to come into this thing locked and loaded, ready to go. And they will transfer, as long as, it's a big if, like the Klaus Schwabs of the world or the World Economic Forums of the world, don't get their claws into them, which they already have. But if they don't get their claws in them, this Pluto and Capricorn generation is going to start blowing some fucking minds, right? They hit 16. They're getting really close to 16 now. The first generation was born in 2009, the first wave in 2009. So 2024, they're what, about 15? 2026, they'll be 16. Wait till they start hitting 15 and 16. This is a generation that's going to blow minds. We're talking teenage CEOs, teenage lawyers. You remember all those kids? Not all of them. Every now and then you see that. By the way, I hated those fucking kids when I was a kid. I hated seeing those fucking prodigies when I was a kid. It's like, oh, fuck you. You think you're so fucking good at playing Rachmaninoff on that piano. You little shit. Let's play trivia. Right? But these kids with Pluto and Capricorn, they've got that. They have it. They will challenge the status quo. They will challenge the status quo work-wise. So why do we have to do that? Well, I just created something that just cut that motherfucker in half. Do you want it or not? That's Pluto and Capricorn. Ruthless efficiency. Ruthless efficiency. And so these generations, Scorpio, Pluto and Scorpio, Pluto and Sag, Pluto and Cap, and then moving out to Aqua and Pi, they're going to have a different relationship with work. We can't apply the same standards to them. It doesn't mean we coddle them. It means that you go do this. You go do this. You're good at it, right? You have to face your fear around it, or you have to self-actualize it. You do that, and you're going to find out some shit about yourself that is really good. But it won't be the same things that we have done because we're not supposed to be doing them. And we're not supposed to be using the same kinds of standards or things that, some of us had to go through. Little bitch. I was fucking miserable when I was 21 or 22, 23. You get to be fucking miserable now. No, it doesn't always work that way. Right? It doesn't always work that way. She wasn't looking for a free pass. She was just looking for some balance in her work-life situation. And if you're a Pluto, I guarantee you that kid's parents are Gen-Xers. Gen X parents, help your daughter find some balance in her life. Or if you're a Gen X manager, help her find some balance in her life so she can be somebody productive and, add something to the world, which is theoretically what we're supposed to do, right? All right, just a little climb up Maslow's pyramid. Lessons in work. All right. Okay, we have a pretty steady crowd here tonight. Let's see some comments here. Let's get down to the new comments. I'm a good man. Wasn't always a good man. Sometimes I was sitting on the fence post. Misery loves company. It's true. I just want to hurt you like I do. Yeah, absolutely. There you go. LaDonna Vela Villalobos. Look at this. You don't have to be a victim. Started my own company at 18 years of age. My children have taken over all three of my business, one in New York City, Arizona, and Missouri. There you go. Why would we want to have to deal with the crap we did? If we can make it better, why not? Some people use their 13. Some people have a lot of grudges and are petty, believe it or not. And I saw it on the Twitter feed or just on Twitter. Let's see. This is interesting. I've noticed Pluto and Cap kids put the fun in fundamentals, love practicing, but hate bathing. I don't have a wee little Pluto and Capricorn goat in my house. Uh-oh, Diane Evans is late. Diane, did you bring a note? Did you bring a note from home? Diane, you must go back to the vice principal's office and get a tardy pass now. Aaron L., I have one Pluto and Scorp daughter, one Pluto and Sagittarius. Robert, yes. If we understood astrology from a generational level through Pluto, it would make our lives so fucking easier. So easier. Child porn. That, you know what? Hanging laundry brings up a great point. It's not child porn, but let's look at that gal. She could go over to OnlyFans, right? OnlyFans, set up a cam, and do it. She doesn't want to do it. The problem here's the issue, right? The issue is that if we don't have the systems in place, and we're almost there now, if we don't have the systems in place, and we can't foster the ability for our future generations to find meaningful work and self-actualization, due to the fact that the economy is in a free fall or inflation is through the roof, what happens? You wind up creating a Weimar Republic Germany where sex work winds up being one of the positions that pays. Right? This is the problem. And when we don't have those things in place, or we don't have the ability to foster creative genius, then what happens? Or at the very least, again, this idea of self-actualization, people go into a life of crime, drugs. Now, a certain percentage of society will always move in that direction. Always. It's been around for a long time. But when times are very, very difficult and people can't get a leg up, you find a lot more people moving into those areas, and in many cases against their will. All right, what else we have? But working my butt off is how I paid for the things I love. Yep, it's a different time. You were raised in a different time. Yep. And by the way, congratulations. Not everybody was born on third base. So if you had to do it, congratulations. Why do we want to see misery in this world? Not me. I've had enough of it. Some people, believe it or not, man, some people, it's called Schadenfreude, but not a good version of it. It can certainly be hard to be who you really are beyond all these influences. I agree. It's not easy, right? It's not easy. And there's no other path, right? There's no other path. Let's see what else we have. Chad, you're going to be just fine. Anything else? Oh, Nathaniel Grimm is in the house tonight, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. As soon as we set egos aside, the sooner we can transform the system. It's an interesting statement. I think the spirit of cooperation can be an interesting one. And there are times where there can be creative and dynamic tension that needs to be worked out. And I think that's part of the burnishing process. But it feels to me like if we had something like a natural disaster, trust me, every single fucking ego, I mean, a huge natural disaster would have to get set aside. Yeah. Good to see you, Evan. Let's see. Am I blurry? Am I blurring out? My ex is a queen of grudges. Passing it on to my son, unfortunately, Scorpio and Aquarius. Yeah, it's hard. There are a lot of really damaged people. A lot of damaged people carrying around a lot of poison, and a lot of it's not their own, right? They've inherited it and they don't know what to do with it. So they just try to offload it to other people. Okay. Looks like I'm looking a little blurry. I'm blurring out. Why don't we get out of here? Let's get out of here. I'm not bitter, just pissed off. It's different. Being pissed off is okay. Bitter is hard. I've been bitter. Not a fun place to be. Not a fun place to be. Okay. Here we go. Hucklebuck. Look at this. Thanks, Huck. Go to settings and advance up the quality. Is that me or for everybody else? All right. I think we're out of here. Let's see. Is there anything else I want to talk about before we go? Oh, if you're interested in getting a reading with me, go to my website, robertphoenix.com. I think next week next Sunday night, I'm going to have the star of the day personal gifts that I started doing. So on Astro Weather, I do star of the day with a celebrity. And somebody asked me to do one for a friend. So I did it and it was a big hit. So I'm going to offer those up for Christmas, although I'm not going to do a ton. I don't know. I'm not sure how to handle this yet because I could get a lot of requests for them. But the good news is that the birthdays are kind of spread out. You want to do them on their birthday, right? So I guess you just have to remind me, or I send it to you and you just give it to them on their birthday. We'll probably do it that way. So there's that. And then tomorrow night, I'll be over on Sirius Sports with my guy, Al Dog. And I think, I think it's going to be me and Al, although we might have a guest. We'll see. We'll see. All right, let's get out of here. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to step on what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being in chat. And hang in there. Hang in there. Do good. Bye for now.